You can listen to it.
Proba bat
Yes, I'm
entzuten.
hearing you. Yes, I'm hearing you in the channel 5 in English. Channel 5. Yes. Yeah, I can hear it. Yes, channel 5 here, yeah. Yeah, I can hear you, yeah? Yeah, channel 5, I'm hearing you.
Bai. Bueno, arratsalde on danoi eta ongi etorriak izan eta batez ere eskerrik asko olako atzalde eder batean hemen gordeta egoteko asmoa azaltzeagatik, ez? Eskerrak eman dizkizuet zuei eta eskerrak eman dizkiot ere Donostiako lankidetza atalari. Izan ere, babes osoa eman digu Tigris elkarteari honelako ziklo bat antolatzeko. Iragan astelenean aukera izan genuen, aukera paregabea eta esklusiboa izan genuen Siriako Kurdistanen egindako ikusentzunezko bat ikusteko, David Meseguerren dokumentala hain zuzen ere. Gaurko ekitaldiarekin amaiera ematen dio zikloari eta dena den lekukotza oso esklusiboa izango dugu gurean. Kasu hontan irudia baino ahotsa izango da. Dakizuenez, hilabete hontan beteko dira 3 urte Siriako gerra piztu zenetik. Beste askotan bezala, irakurketa etorri zaigu txuri beltzean, batetik gobernua eta bestetik oposizioa. Eta gutxita nola pixkanaka, tantaka, iritsi zaigu 3. fronte honen berri. Funtsean zer da 3. frontea? Berak esplikatuko du beranduxeo, 3. frontea da, ez oposizioarekin, ez gobernuarekin bat egiten duen taldea, eta kasu hontan Siriako kurduak dira, ez? Salam Muslim dugu gurean, Salam Muslim da Siriako kurduen buruzagi esan genezakena nagusiena, aurpegi ezagunena. Batasun demokratikoaren alderdiko buruzagia da, eta esan bezala egun Siriako kurduei nolapait aurpegia eta ahotsa ematen diena. Buenas tardes, agradeceros que hayáis venido a todos, agradecer por supuesto al Ayuntamiento de San Sebastián habernos dado la oportunidad de celebrar este pequeño ciclo dedicado a Kurdistán de Siria, ¿no? Que hemos dado en llamar una alternativa al caos en Siria. Bien, los que estuvisteis el lunes y tuvisteis la oportunidad de ver un documental, un testimonio exclusivo en Kurdistán de Siria de la mano de nuestro compañero David Meseguer, a quien le estamos muy agradecidos todos. Y hoy con Salam Muslim, como decía, presidente de la Unión Democrática, del Partido de la Unión Democrática, damos fin a este ciclo con una voz muy exclusiva. Hablamos de la voz y de la cara de lo que son hoy, del movimiento que llevan hoy los kurdos de Siria, ¿no? Hablamos de la tercera vía o el tercer frente. Este mes se cumplirán 3 años desde el inicio de la guerra en Siria, un conflicto que se nos ha dibujado en blanco y negro. Por un lado hemos visto al gobierno, por otro lado hemos visto una oposición y pocas veces o en muy contadas ocasiones nos ha llegado constancia de que existe un tercer movimiento que no se alinea ni con unos ni con otros. Bien, para hablar de todo ello voy a ceder ahora mismo la palabra a Salam Muslim y agradecerle el haber aceptado la visita, la invitación que le enviamos desde la Asociación Tigris, un colectivo de periodistas principalmente y de individuos, de gente, digamos, de diferentes aspectos, pero que tenemos en común un interés por la diversidad de Oriente Medio y por conocer más a fondo una realidad que muchas veces nos viene pues muy tamizada, ¿no? besterik gabe, hitza emango diot Salim Muslimi.
Thank you for everybody and for you to come and listen to us, and thank you for the people, these Tigris organizations who arranged for our visit to the Basque country, and the people who's working very seriously to be a bridge between the two nations, the Kurds and the Basques. So thank you for everybody, and thank you for them. For ourselves, I mean, in Syria and in Kurdish case, what's going on, I would like to brief it because I think all the world became a small village, so everybody knows what's going on from the television and from the media. This is first. And secondly, what's going on in Syria or in the Middle East, it's affecting Europe and affecting Spain and even the Basque people, our friends over there. So maybe we are here just to tell about the things not being shown in the media and other things. And maybe if you have any questions about you are wondering, we are ready to answer them. This is one. And secondly, I would like to introduce what we are talking about. Now we are talking about the Middle East and Syria. And as we know from the history, there is an ancient place called Mesopotamia. And this Mesopotamia, it means the place between the Tigris and Euphrates, which is it's witnessed the first society, human societies in the history, which was about 12,000 years ago. And this Mesopotamia, a part of it is called Kurdistan, which is the place of the Kurdish people. It means the Kurdish people are very ancient and authentic people on the areas. They are not immigrated from anywhere to the Mesopotamia, and they are living in their place since thousands of years, at least. And this Mesopotamia or Kurdistan was divided between four countries, which is Turkey and Syria and Iraq and Iran. And what we are looking for is the Rojava, which is the Western Kurdistan, the part of the Kurdistan located in north of Syria, northeast of Syria. We called it Rojava. This is Rojava. It's a place when we say Rojava, we are talking about territory about to 35,000 square kilometers, and which is and 1.5 times as the Basque country. And we are talking about 15% of the Syrian population, which is about 3.5 million people in this area. So we are talking about Rojava. It means this land and those people who living there. And as I mentioned, because the Mesopotamia was the first society for the human beings since thousands of years, it means the place is not only for the Kurds. We have Kurds, we have Arabs, we have the Syriacs, where they are original people in the place, authentic people. All of them are the owners of that land and living together since thousands of years. But what happened in the beginning of the 20th century, it's 1920s exactly. You know the history, as there was Ottoman Empire was divided between some other, forces like England and France at that time. The Syrian border was drawn at that time, it's 1920th, and Syria itself was a mandate of the French mandate till 1946, which became independent states from the France Empire. And then since then, because the Arabs were majority, they were governing everything in Syria, and they just said everything in Syria should be Arabic. Even the name of Syria was Syrian Arabic Republic, so it became an Arabic Republic, which means they don't recognize any minorities and any other nations living in Syria. So because of that, we were the Kurds, we were depressed, and we were tortured, and we were ignored and enforced to immigration from our places. And they had many plans, I mean, by this Ba'athist regime, which came to the government and governing Syria since 1963. So we suffered a lot of this Ba'athist regime, and of course there were resistance against that, but our first resistance maybe against the Ba'athist regime was the Kurds. In 2004 we uprised, we called it Serhildan Kamishlo. So this Ba'athist regime, it doesn't depressed and tortured only the Kurds, but also the Arabs and the other minorities and all the components of Syria, which there are Arabs, Syrians, Kurds, and Turkmens, and Durzis, and even those believed minorities like Durzis and Alawites, also, I mean, all the components of Syria. At the beginning of this, which called Arabic Spring, which is not actually, it wasn't Arabic Spring, it was Nation Spring or People's Spring, because the people who suffered from the dictatorship and from the depressing in the Middle East mainly, they uprised to have some democracy, to have some freedom against those dictatorships. And in Syria it was dictatorship, but oligarchic also, because not only the Alawites were in the governing, but also with the other, all together, I mean, oligarchic from the other nations also. So they became together and governing Syria and depressing them by the name of Ba'ath Party. So since '63, everybody was under the torture, depressing, and dictatorship of the Ba'ath regime. So this People's Spring or Arab Spring, when started, it was the people looking for their freedom and looking for the democracy in the Middle East mainly. And as everybody followed, because it wasn't a long time ago, it was in 2010, which was started from Tunisia, and then expanded to Libya, to Egypt, and then to Syria. We found another thing, which was the revolution. It was for the freedom and for democracy. We went as the opposition of Syria. We went to Tunisia. We met some people of them. There was Belaid and other Al-Brahimi, which they were the leaders of the Tunisian revolution. What they said, well, we had our revolution done, but our revolution was stolen from us. And actually was that, because they were been fighting, struggling against the old regime and against Ben Ali for tens of years. And what happened? The revolution was stolen by Ghannouchi and another party. They became to the power and they became the government. And they were opposition again. And lately, you know, Brahimi or Belaid were suicided and were killed, both of them. Both were the leaders of the Tunisian revolution. And what happened in Libya again? It didn't solve anything. And in Syria again. So this is the situation. I mean, the people who needs the democracy, need the freedom, they are uprising against the regimes. And what happening? Somebody else is going and stealing their revolution. So we were facing and witnessing the same situation in Syria. Now what happened in Syria in the 15th of March 2011, all the Syrians, all the people of Syria, they uprised against this regime. And as Kurds, we were struggling against this regime since 2004. So it's naturally we were leading this, this revolution again. We were part of it because they are calling for democracy and freedom, and the most people who need democracy and freedom, they were the Kurds. So we were in front of this revolution again. And we tried to find allies with us, with the Arabs and Arab parties, and we succeeded to establish NCB, which is National Coordinating Body for Democratic Changes. It was established in the 30th of June 2011. And after that, after establishing this NCB with the Arab partners all together as the real opposition, we found some other forces like United States, Saudi Arabia, Qatar becoming together to establish another, maybe you can say, artificial opposition, which is mainly from people from outside. They don't know the Syrian people, they don't know the Syrian, what Syrian people are suffering, and they are away from Syria since tens of years. Some of them been in exile for 20 years, 30 years from outside. They collected them, and they are not home again even, became together and said, those are the opposition of Syria. And they started to send the groups, armed group, into Syria. When we established NCB with our Arab partners alliance, we decided not to go to the armed revolution, and we said our revolution should be peacefully and democratically. We can, organize the meetings and demonstrations and everything, and we should have our defending rights, which is right for everybody to defend ourselves when the regime forces attacks us. This was our law and our conditions for the revolution. But what we have seen is just after the June, a few months later, we found some groups armed by the government, by the regime itself, and some others armed by this opposition, which we mentioned. It's mainly supported by Qatar and Saudi Arabia and Turkey. So the democratic revolution became an armed revolution. So it's not more revolution, it's turned to something else, which is fighting each other for the power, sharing power. So it's the matter of who's going to govern. And they started to forget calling for the democracy, for freedom, and nobody was caring about the Syrian people. So at that time, we as the Kurds living in the north of Syria, east of Syria, in Rojava, we decided to organize ourselves and to protect ourselves against the regime forces, and then anyone who tried to invade our areas, we should be protected. And we started to organize ourselves, to organize our people, because we believe the organized people can do everything, and even the protecting themselves. And what happened by this organization, we could throw out the regime forces from our places by July 2012. So by July 2012, 19th of July exactly, we started from Kobani, and then at the 20th from Afrin and 22nd from Derik, we started to throw the regime forces from our places, forcing them to leave our places, our areas. And then in July 2012, our places were free. It meant it was liberated from the regime forces. There was no regime forces except some points, which is very strategic points, like in Qamishlo, like the airport and some other places, the Arabic places, which we are sensitive not to have Arabic-Kurdish war, so we were sensitive about that. We didn't want to attack those places, but they were keeping themselves without attacking the Kurdish areas. So what happened, it means mostly the Kurdish areas were liberated since July 2012. But after then, we found the other groups are attacking our places because these groups are Salafist groups, mainly supported by Turkey, by Saudi Arabia, by Qatari, by the name of throwing the regime or by, fighting with the regime. They came to our areas, and there was no regime in our, and regime forces in our areas because they were liberated. So the only, their aim is to finish the Kurdish, and they cannot stand with the Kurdish rise, the Kurdish being. And by the orders of Turkey, they attacked our places. So we can't protect ourselves against them too. What happened after 1 year of experience fighting against the regime and these forces, these groups in the areas, maybe the followers knows that we had hundreds of martyrs of our people, young people were killed during this fighting, and of course there were thousands of those groups also were killed during this fighting, but at the end we could protect our areas. Till now we have some clashes in some places like Afrin and like Qamishli and other places, but we are able to defend ourselves against those groups who are attacking our areas. But after 1 year, 1 year was passed in July 2013, we felt this is a very big responsibility, to hold the responsibilities, because there were daily demands of our people, daily life and daily needs, and also we have to arrange for the health care, for the other matters. So we decided to have a kind of administration. This administration should be a transitional period, a part of solution of Syria. So we announced, after 1 year, in July 2013, we called all the components of the area, which they were mainly Arabs, Syrians and others, Turkmens and the other minorities. We called them to come together and to establish any administration, democratic administration, to have their responsibilities against the society. And what happened, of course, they came together in November 2013. All these components come together. It was about 35 organizations from all the components, and there were 82 persons worked as a council or as assembly for all the people representing all the components. They became together, and the decision was from then on the hand of this council or assembly, because there were a temporary assembly for taking some steps for the administration, transitional administration in our areas. And they decided to divide our areas, Rojava, to 3 cantons, to have 3 different administration. Temporarily, maybe in future they can be united in one administration, but just because of the necessity now. We have some areas still under the control of these armed groups between Al Jazeera and Kobani and Afrin. We have some places still under the control of those groups. So we had to divide it to 3 cantons. But I want to mention that the things that have been decided by this assembly, they were very democratic and very sophisticated laws. For example, they arranged for a social contract, which is social agreement between all the components. It's like a constitution for Rojava, and constitution, according to this constitution, we have 3 main, 3 languages will be official languages in the Al Jazeera canton, and other languages maybe could be for the other minorities in Kobani and Afrin. So it's first time to have 3 languages taught at the school together, which is Arabic, Syriac, and Kurdish languages. And also we had a quota for all the components, 10% for the Kurds, and 10% for the Arabs, 10% for the Syriacs, and 5% for other minorities, in the assembly, which is going to be permanent. And 65% is going to be competition between all the components who can be selected as a representative in this consult. So, and they decided also to go to the election within 4 months, which is it was 1 month ago. Maybe it will take 2-3 months. We will have elections in the areas, so it will be very democratic way. And another point is the women, because they are giving the right to the women, not giving, just considering the women as 50% of the society. So she should be everywhere, and already we consider the 40% for each gender as a quota for both genders, for the women and the men. And every organization in the system, it has a co-presidential system. For example, now PYD, we have a co-presidential system. I am one of those presidents, and there is another president, which is Asya Abdullah. She is in Rojava now, working for the organization affairs in Rojava. So the women is very important for us, and also for the children. And so the most important thing, we could, by this democracy and by these rules, defend ourselves in our areas in Rojava. Maybe it's the first time because we consider everything related to the components in this area is value for everybody. So because of that, the first time we found our young people, YPG, defending our areas. They were with Syriacs, with others, defending the church, for example. And we have many people, they were martyred during defending the church in Serikani, also in Hasaka, in Tertamer provinces. So, it's first time to find the Muslim young people defending the church and being killed for this purpose, defending the church. This is one. And secondly, these groups who are attacking our places, they are, as you know, they are extremist Muslims. There were some times we had to sign some ceasefires in some areas with them. So we enforced these groups to come and sign the ceasefire agreement in the church. Nobody can believe that. we are enforcing them to come to the church and sign the agreement for ceasefire. So it happened, really, it's in Rojava. And the second one is for the Kurdish people. I mean, in the Kurdish, naturally, we have a part of the Kurdish nation, Kurdish people, they are Yazidis, which they are not Muslims. This is one. And also we have a part which is Alawis. And those Yazidis, during all the history, they were killed by the Muslims. Kurdish Muslims were killing them with the Arab Muslims. But the first time in the history, the Kurdish people, and maybe the others, those young people defending the Yazidis' villages and being killed and martyrs in order to protect these villages. So what I mean by that, I mean those people, we are living in Rojava, really we are not only defending ourselves and defending our democratic rights, but also we are remedying the history which was written in a wrong way. Those people, we are living together since thousands of years, and we are trying to build again this brotherness and living together with all different components. I mean, it's first time, maybe somebody will not believe. I mean, young people, Muslims, are being killed to protect the church. Nobody will believe it, but it's happened. Actually, it's happened. And because of that, we consider this model we are establishing in Rojava as a model could be solve all the problems of Syria. It could be model for Syria, for future Syria. And even the steps we have taken in Rojava is the steps could be part of the solution, final solution for the maybe for future Syria. And we are enforced to take this kind of steps because we don't know when it's going. I mean, the political solution will be found, when be reached, because also we know there was Geneva too, and all the sides, I mean, especially those forces who governing the world, they are not serious to solve the Syrian problem. They are not serious at all because Syria has been a part of the nation's game. It's related to the other benefits and related to the other maybe interests of United States, of America, in European Union, on NATO, on the other forces. So it's not more the matter of the Syrian people alone. So because of that, as the Kurdish people in Rojava, we are able to protect ourselves. We cannot live in vacuum. We have to do something, to take some steps to protect our people till we find the final solution. So we are not separatists, and we are not threat to anybody, and even Turkey and the others which were bothered by this, I mean, this Kurdish rise. So they were bothered by them, but really we are not against anybody. We would like to have very good relations with Turkey and with the Arabs, with the other components, with the other minorities. We are not against anybody. We are just protecting ourselves, and we are able to do it. And more than that, as I mentioned, we are just a sample. We are just, I can say, it's a model for solving the problems in not only in Syria, but also for all Middle East. So what we are doing really is, we are proud of what we are doing. This is one. And secondly, by doing this and fighting against those groups, those terrorists, we consider ourselves as a first front of defending the democracy in the Middle East. And we believe the democracy defending is not, the democracy is not by the borders of Europe only. If you want to defend the democracy, you have to start from the Middle East. I think the danger coming to Europe will come from the Middle East. So everybody pro-democracy, like the democracy to spread out, it should be beside us, defending the democracy. So defending the democracy starts from the Middle East, we think, and we are in the first front of defending the democracy, but unfortunately, till now, we are alone. Nobody is beside us, nobody is supporting us. Of course, I'm not talking about the Basque people because we are together now. Maybe some of them, of your people listening me the first time, but I can say I am here in Europe since 2 years, and as I didn't left any door. I knocked all the doors of all the countries, telling them we are defending the democracy. We would like you to see, we would like to see you with us, beside us, and even we didn't find anybody to listen to us. So it means maybe they are not they are not ready to care about the democracy in the Middle East. But I am sure, again, those groups and those Salafis are not only dangerous for the Kurdish people in their area, they are danger and threat for all Europe, for all the democracy, for all the human being. Because what they have done, maybe you have seen through the media, I mean, in the 21st century, can you believe to see the people eating the human meat? Can you believe that the people have been slaughtered in the streets, slaughtering just by knife, just like killing the chicken? This is the truth. We are living every day, and many of our people, they were just slaughtered in the streets. Defending the democracy, we believe that we are defending them. But as I mentioned, still we are alone now. We knock the door, nobody is listening to us. And I think this is the time to listen to us, to cooperate with us, defending not only the Kurdish people, but also the democracy starting from the Middle East. And this is what we are trying to do. This is what we are trying to tell everybody. And is it the time to finish? You still like time?
Yeah, you still have time, yes.
Yes. So anyway, I am here to tell you what we are suffering and what we can do. And in front of you, I thank all the people. I am here for 3 days. I really found warm hearts here in Basque people, and I think we have a long times. I mean, we know each other because we both suffered from, be kept from our democratic rights, from our freedom, and we had a struggle against those ones who kept us from the freedom and democracy. And so because of that, we understand each other, and we have a lot of things to do together, maybe in future. And I thank you for all the people who received us and listened to us in this country. And I think the future will be more shining for our both nations, I mean the Kurds and the Basque people. Maybe I wouldn't take you many times, so I thank you very much for you again, and I am listening. If you have any questions, I am ready to answer them. Thank you for everybody.
Eskerrik asko Muslim jauna, orduan berak esan bezala, erekiko deu galderak itxiko tartea. Baten batek baldin badaka lehenbizikoa. Hor da norbait.
Welcome to the Basque country. Salan? Your name?
Sale Muslim.
Salim Muslim. Welcome to the Basque country. I would like to you one question. I would like to you a question about the people of Kurdish people, and you are together, but there are some difference, because one part of the we read to the newspaper that you have any problem with a Geneva meeting, because some people, Kurdish people party, within the Geneva, another part don't hear. And what is the situation of the Kurdish people in Rojava? This is the question. And, bueno, ni nahi nuena eginda galdera bat, hemen gu egunkarietan eta irakurri dugu Kurdistango zati bat dagoela alde batean, organizazio batzu daudela oposizioarekin, eta beste batzuk alazanekin, bai? Eta beste batzu libre. Orduan, galdera da, ea zer moduz konpontzen zeaten, zer moduz konpontzen dien beraien artean, kurduen artean, hori da.
Okay.
You understand?
Any more questions?
You can answer if you want.
Yeah, if there is more questions, or I have to answer this one. Yeah, for any country, it's not only the Kurdish society. For any society, you have different opinions and different strategies and even different ideologies. So the Kurdish people are the same as even in Basque countries. We found many parties, and I was in the parliament in Vitoria, and I saw many parties, and we talked to them. So this is very ordinary things. There's people, maybe they can think in different way. Yeah, for Geneva too, I think there were some individuals, persons, but they were not representing the Kurdish people, because I mean, there was no Kurdish issue in Geneva II to be discussed. And we told, I mean, all those forces, I mean, the United Nations and even Russia and the United States, we told them to put the Kurdish issue in the agenda of Geneva II to be discussed. We said, if you are looking into the Syrian issue to be solved, the Kurdish people are part of Syria. So you cannot solve Syria without solving the Kurdish issue. If you want really to consider and solve the problem of Syria, you should do it with the Kurdish issue. And they refused to discuss the Kurdish issue in Geneva II. So if they are not going to discuss the Kurdish issue, it means, I mean, the Kurds is represented or to be presented in the Geneva II, it doesn't mean anything, because it's not going to be discussed. They refused to discuss the Kurdish issue in the Geneva II, and because of that, they selected some people is just to be decorated for them to say, here are the Kurdish too. But there was no Kurdish issue on the agenda of Geneva II. And this is what we are trying to fight. We told them, as a PYD and my colleagues, my friends, we said, if you are not going to discuss the Kurdish issue, so we have nothing to do in Geneva II. So this was the case. We were not there because they didn't discuss the Kurdish issue, and they are not ready, even now, they are not ready to discuss it. And Geneva II was among the regime and the other forces fighting for their benefits on Syria. They were not the people of Syria, they were not represented in Geneva II. So this is the truth, yeah.
Beste galderarik? Hemen dago, beste bat.
Hola, buenas tardes. Yo estuve el lunes y me quedó una, bueno, no pregunté, y luego hoy se me han ocurrido dos preguntas cortitas. La primera es, ¿por qué el gobierno no ataca la zona donde estáis vosotros? Es una cosa que me quedé muy sorprendida. Después otra, ¿cómo os financiáis? Porque tenéis unos grupos de defensa, entonces se supone que, bueno, tenéis que tener financiación económica. Y la tercera, me ha parecido oírte que no sois separatistas. Entonces, yo no entiendo cómo los kurdos sois un pueblo que estáis en 4 países. Entonces, lo que queréis es formar el pueblo kurdo todo unido, o dentro de cada país que estáis ahora, no sé cómo, qué es lo que buscáis o qué es lo que queréis. No sé si me he explicado.
Sí, yo creo que
Sí.
Yo creo que sí, ¿no? Son 3 buenas preguntas.
Yes, well, thank you very much. For the Syrian government or Syrian regime not attacking our areas, just let's think politically a little bit. We are struggling against this regime since 2004, and the regime knows very well when they attack us what the reaction will be. So it was in 2004, we had one started from Kamishlo, and within 24 hours, all the Kurdish area was blamed, uprised against the regime. So they know how the Kurdish people are organized. This is first. Secondly, because I think from our policy, because we, from the beginning, not the beginning, when we found there are armed forces, two sides are, killing each other, we refused to be part of this killing. What we said, we will defend ourselves, but we are not going to attack anybody. We will just defend ourselves in our areas, and we established our forces according to that. So we didn't belong to the Turkish government, the orders of them, and we didn't get help from Saudi Arabia, from Qatar. So we are not against the Syria as a country. We are against this regime, and we decided to do it not by killing the people. Our aim is not to killing the people. And first, when we thrown them, the regime forces out, and then they went out, and between us and them, the Kurdish areas and the regime, always there were those forces, which means those groups, Salafis. So they are between us and the government. They are, fighting against us from one side, fighting the regime from the other side. So we have not been in touch with the government forces. So why they should open another front which they don't need? So this is, if you think politically, it's it's not intelligence. To go and open the fighting and another front which you don't need it. So because of that, they are not attacking. But in spite of that, they tried in somewhere. For example, they resisted in somewhere, like Gurziro, for example. It was about 300 soldiers They were surrounded for days and days, maybe for 13 days. We didn't kill them till very few numbers of killings. We could finish this story. We didn't want to kill all these 300 soldiers, for example, but they were enforced to go out. So this is our aim, is not killing first, and secondly, we are just defending ourselves. We are not attacking anybody. And the government forces, I mean the regime forces, they didn't need to open another front with them, with the Kurds, because they know what the reaction will be. So this is the first question. The second question, till now, we are supplying our people and defending ourselves by the Kurdish sources only. Nobody supported us, nobody gave us any weapon, but from the beginning, all the Kurdish people, which they are about 40 million, they were beside us, supporting us, money with everything. And even from the beginning, for the military needs, we had PDK, which is Barzani's party, and then Talabani's party, PUK, and then PKK. They were beside us. They supported us from the beginning. And we are still depending on our people in everywhere, and even for diaspora, for supporting us, financing us. And I was in Syria for many time. I saw those black market, how they selling the weapons to our people. If you have dollars, you can get any weapon you like within Syria and or anywhere you like. Those smugglers can do everything. This is the second question. For the third question, really we are not separatists. We are trying, because we believe that since Kurdistan was divided between 4 countries, maybe more than 100 years, we have to accept that different conditions for each part have been appeared. I mean, fighting against the regime in Tehran is not fighting the regime as in Ankara, because there are different regimes, there are different conditions, they have different even mentality, and the same in Iraq, and same in Syria. So we have different conditions, and the struggle for the freedom and democracy will be in different ways, in different manners. So because of that, the conditions are different. This is one. For in Syrian case, for Rojava, we are not looking, I think there are many parties, maybe many parties, Kurdish parties. Nobody is looking for the separatism from Syria. We are looking for democratic way. For our case, as a PYD, our philosophy is we are just trying to do what Europe has been done. Europe, maybe they have drawn these borders among them since the French Revolution in 1779, and till then, for 200 years, they have spent maybe killed about 300 million people just to draw these borders among these countries. And now these borders are meaningless, because they are paying maybe tens of billions of euros to remove that. I mean, these lines who drawn by the blood, paying money to remove them. And those borders have meaningless, because the mentality has been changed, cautions have been changed. And what we are looking in for long term for the Middle East as our ideas, to have a democratic confederalism in Middle East. So the borders will be meaningless. So the Kurdish society could be united as a German have been united in the United Europe. So the borders will have no meanings. So this is, we are getting benefit from the European experience and from the other nations, and see our right to get benefit from the other nations' experience. So we don't like to have draw borders by blood and remove it by money after a few years. So this is our case. We are thinking of, these steps we have taken in road